Dear friends, welcome. Sit down, relax, take a deep breath, and prepare yourself to wander through the magical corridors of history. Today we are going to talk about one of the most interesting and important periods of human history, the Bronze Age. This was a time when many things changed in the world and humanity made great strides. Now close your eyes and take a journey back thousands of years to ancient times. Imagine metallic objects shining in the golden rays of the sun, the magic of newly discovered minerals, and how these minerals changed human life. Welcome to this period, the beginning of the Bronze Age. As we step into the Bronze Age, I will first take you to the beginning of this period. Open your eyes and imagine that you are in the warm lands of Mesopotamia in 3300 BC. The land where the first civilizations of humanity were born. Here people discovered bronze by combining copper and tin. This discovery changed the course of human history. More durable tools and sharper weapons could now be made. Everything became easier and more efficient in agriculture, warfare, and everyday life. In this new era, cities grew, trade increased, cultures interacted more with each other. People began to use bronze not only in tools but also in art and ornaments. This new metal changed the structure of societies and redefined the balance of power. What happened during the Bronze Age? Who were the key figures of this period? What discoveries and innovations shaped this era? We will discover it all together. Are you ready? Then let's start traveling through the golden pages of history together. Ah, my dear friends. Are you ready to open the wide doors of the Bronze Age? I am going to take you back thousands of years to one of the most exciting periods in human history. Close your eyes and listen to me, because what I am about to tell you will take you on a journey through time. The Bronze Age covers a period in human history between 3300 BC and 1200 BC. However, this period did not start and end at the same time in every geography. For example, while the Bronze Age started very early in Mesopotamia and Egypt, it started much later in some parts of Europe. The beginning of the Bronze Age is defined by the discovery of bronze when copper and tin were brought together. This discovery was a great revolution for humanity. Because bronze is a more durable and harder metal than copper, it allowed people to make great changes in their daily lives. Imagine, my friends, when you only had stone and copper tools, suddenly you have a strong metal like bronze. This metal makes everything from tools of war to agricultural tools more efficient and effective. People could now dig deeper, build stronger buildings, and fight with more effective weapons. This change also radically altered the structure of societies. Powerful city-states emerged, trade routes expanded, and cultural interactions increased. Now I am going to take you deep into this era. Imagine the lives of the people who lived during this time. How did their everyday lives change? How did their societies transform, and what innovations set them apart from other eras? Let's explore this fascinating period together. At the beginning of the Bronze Age, the first tools made of bronze were used in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia. These tools revolutionized agriculture and construction. People could now farm more efficiently and build larger and stronger structures. These innovations caused cities to grow rapidly and societies to become more complex. At the same time, similar developments took place in Egypt. In this land ruled by the pharaohs, great pyramids were built using weapons and tools made of bronze. These structures are not only engineering marvels, but also symbolize the power and splendor of this period. Another important region of the Bronze Age was Anatolia. These lands played a major role in bronze production thanks to their rich mineral deposits. The Hittites built a great empire with their powerful bronze weapons and became one of the most important civilizations of this period. Dear friends, in order to better understand the magic and importance of the Bronze Age, we need to take a closer look at the events, discoveries, and innovations of this period. Let us examine together the important figures, events, and discoveries of this period. Are you ready? Then let's continue our journey together through the golden pages of history. I remember once upon a time people used only stone and copper. Copper was an abundant metal in nature and could be easily worked, but the hardness of copper was not enough for hard work. This is where one of nature's mysterious tricks came into play: tin. Tin is an element that is rarely found in pure form in nature. However, ancient people managed to find this metal and combine it with copper. This combination gave birth to bronze, which changed the course of history. Bronze is an alloy obtained by mixing copper and tin in certain proportions. This mixture combined the softness of copper and the durability of tin to create a much stronger and more useful metal. The first bronze masters combined these two metals by extracting and melting copper and tin in mines. Copper and tin were melted at high temperatures to a liquid state and then mixed in specific proportions. When this mixture cooled and solidified, the resulting bronze was much more durable and harder than copper. This process, although difficult and dangerous, was indispensable for human progress. My dear friends, with the discovery of bronze, people made great advances in metalworking techniques. During this period, there was a great development in the art of metalworking and metal foundry. The durability of bronze allowed people to make more complex and diverse tools. Let's go into the details of these processes. Bronze was melted and poured into molds to make various tools. Early bronze masters improved their casting techniques and were able to make more complex and detailed tools. For example, knives, swords, axes, and armor made of bronze provided a great advantage on the battlefield. These weapons changed the course of wars by increasing both defensive and offensive power. Agricultural tools also started to be made of bronze. Bronze plows increased tillage efficiency and greatly accelerated agricultural production. This enabled people to produce more food and build larger societies. The use of bronze had a huge impact not only in warfare and agriculture, but also in everyday life. Ornaments, jewelry, and tools made of bronze reflected the aesthetics and lifestyle of the period. The metalworking masters of the Bronze Age made significant advances not only in tool and weapon making, but also in construction and art. Bronze was used to make decorations and sculptures in architecture. Bronze sculptures made during this period were a sign of artistic talent and aesthetic understanding. The durability of bronze has enabled these works to survive until today and tells us about the understanding of art of this period. Dear viewers, the discovery of bronze and the development of metalworking techniques is one of the most important turning points in human history. The innovations and inventions made during this period laid the foundation not only for the Bronze Age but also for future civilizations. Dear friends, I will now take you to Mesopotamia, the most ancient land in human history. In this fertile land, one of the first great civilizations of human history, the Sumerians, was born. Let's take a look at the rich history of Mesopotamia and the values the Sumerians brought to this land. Mesopotamia literally means between two rivers. Indeed, this region is located between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. Thanks to the irrigation opportunities provided by these two rivers, the Mesopotamian lands became extremely favorable for agriculture. This fertile land gave rise to the first settled agricultural societies. People left the nomadic life and started to build villages and cities on these lands. The development of agriculture led to an increase in population and societies became more complex. The brightest star of this fertile land was the Sumerians. The Sumerians established the first city-states of history in the south of Mesopotamia, in the territory of present-day Iraq, around 4000 BC. Among the Sumerian city-states were important centers such as Uruk, Lagash, Eridu, and Nippur. These cities were in constant competition with each other in terms of agriculture, trade, and cultural development. The Sumerians made great progress in agriculture. They developed irrigation canals and agricultural techniques. This increase in agricultural production raised the welfare level of the society and allowed the Sumerians to build large cities. But agriculture was only one aspect of Sumerian civilization. Let's take a closer look at other Sumerian achievements. The Sumerians were the first civilization to invent writing. This writing system, called cuneiform, was used by engraving on clay tablets. Cuneiform, which was initially developed to keep trade records, came to be used in a wider range of fields, such as literary works, laws, and religious texts. These written sources have survived to the present day, providing us with valuable information about the Sumerian civilization. One of the most important works of the Sumerians is the Epic of Gilgamesh. This epic tells the story of Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk, and his quest for immortality and the adventures he experienced in this process. The Epic of Gilgamesh is one of the oldest literary works not only of the Sumerians but also of all human history. The epic deals with universal themes of humanity and gives us important clues about the worldview of that period. The Sumerians also established an advanced legal system. The laws of Ur-Nammu, issued by King Ur-Nammu, is one of the oldest known written laws in history. These laws were designed to maintain order in society, protect justice, and punish crimes. The Sumerian legal system later inspired the famous laws of the Babylonian king Hammurabi. The Sumerians also achieved great success in architecture. The temples called ziggurats were the most remarkable structures of Sumerian cities. These pyramid-shaped temples were sacred places dedicated to the gods and formed the religious center of the city. Ziggurats were used not only for worship, but also as observatories and administrative centers. My dear friends, Mesopotamia and the Sumerians were a civilization that laid the foundations of human history. Significant advances were made in many fields such as agriculture, writing, law, and architecture. The Sumerians not only left us a technological and cultural heritage, but also took their place on the stage of history as one of the first great civilizations of humanity. My dear friends, I will now take you to the fertile lands of the Nile River, to the early periods of Egypt, where one of the most fascinating civilizations in human history, the Egyptian civilization, was born. Let's take a look at the beginnings of Egypt together. The Nile River was the heart of Egyptian civilization. It was the source of life and offered endless fertility to the people living around it. The first settlers of Egypt made a living by farming the fertile land provided by the Nile. Its annual floods nourished the soil and provided farmers with bountiful harvests. For this reason, the Nile was referred to as Egypt's river of life. Early Egypt was divided into two main regions, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Upper Egypt encompassed the highlands south of the Nile, and Lower Egypt the lowlands and marshy areas of the Nile Delta. These two regions were originally ruled as independent kingdoms. However, this changed around 3100 BC. According to legend, King Narmer of Upper Egypt conquered Lower Egypt, united Egypt, and established the first centralized state in history. Narmer's great achievement made him the first pharaoh of Egypt. Narmer established his capital at Memphis, known as the White Walls in Upper Egypt. This unification marked the beginning of what would be known as the First Dynasty in Egyptian history. During the First Dynasty, the Egyptian people lived a prosperous life, engaged in agriculture and trade. In addition to agriculture, animal husbandry and fishing were also important sources of livelihood. The Nile River was an important transportation route not only for agriculture but also for trade. Trade on the Nile increased Egypt's wealth and ensured the prosperity of its people. In early Egypt, society had a hierarchical structure. The pharaoh, as the representative of God on earth, was at the top. The pharaoh was seen not only as a ruler but also as a god. The people believed that the pharaoh had divine powers and obeyed him absolutely. Below the pharaoh were the viziers, priests, and nobles. These classes played important roles in the administration of the pharaoh. Priests worshipped the gods and conducted religious ceremonies. Viziers, on the other hand, carried out the administrative affairs of the pharaoh. During this period, Egyptians started to build great temples and monuments in line with their belief in the gods. These temples were considered to be the homes of the gods on earth and were built with great care. The most important gods were Ra, the sun god, Isis, the goddess of fertility, and Osiris, the god of death. The Egyptian people gathered in temples to worship their gods and ask for blessings from them and performed various rituals. In the early periods of Egypt, there were also important developments in art and architecture. Great progress was made in stone masonry, sculpture, and painting. Egyptians became masters of building monumental structures. Monumental buildings made of stone blocks symbolized the power and wealth of Egypt. Among these structures, the pharaoh's tombs, or mastabas, were particularly noteworthy. Mastabas were rectangular prism-shaped structures and were prepared for the pharaoh's afterlife. My dear friends, the early periods of Egypt were the times when the foundations of this ancient civilization were laid and a great civilization was born. During this period, the Egyptian people, benefiting from the fertility of the Nile River, achieved great success and left their mark on history. My dear friends, I will now take you to the ancient lands of Asia, to the Indus Valley Civilization, one of the oldest and most mysterious civilizations in the history of mankind, which sprouted around the Indus River. This great civilization flourished in the lands of present-day Pakistan and northwest India between approximately 3300 BC and 1300 BC. Let's dive into the depths of this extraordinary civilization together. The Indus Valley Civilization was known for its vast territories and impressive urban planning. Among the best known and most important cities of this civilization were Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. These cities were built with advanced engineering and urban planning. Streets were laid out with a uniform grid system, equipped with sewage systems and water wells. These arrangements revealed how advanced the people living at that time had advanced technology and living standards. Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro were surrounded by large city walls, which provided both defense and protection against floods. The cities were filled with a variety of structures such as large baths, warehouses, workshops, and public buildings. In particular, the building known as the Great Bath was one of the most remarkable structures of Mohenjo-Daro. It was probably used for ritual bathing ceremonies and played an important role in the religious and social life of the community. The people of the Indus Valley had also made great advances in agriculture. They took advantage of the floods of the Indus River to construct irrigation canals and create large agricultural areas. In these areas, they grew wheat, barley, cotton, and various fruits. Animal husbandry was also an important source of livelihood. Especially cattle, sheep, and goat breeding was common. In addition to agriculture and animal husbandry, the people of the Indus Valley were also engaged in trade. Their trade networks extended as far as Mesopotamia and Central Asia, and the goods produced in the Indus Valley found buyers in a wide geography. The art and craftsmanship of this ancient civilization was also impressive. The people of the Indus Valley produced jewelry and ornaments made of various stones, ivory, shells, and metal. Especially seals were among the most characteristic artifacts of this period. These seals, with various animal figures and symbols on them, were used in trade and perhaps in religious rituals. Pottery was also highly developed. The pottery produced in the Indus Valley was remarkable for its elegant patterns and sturdy construction. The writing system of this civilization was also quite mysterious. This writing, known as the Indus script, is still not fully deciphered today. It is known to have been used on seals and various pottery. The decipherment of the Indus script will allow us to learn more about the language, culture, and daily life of this ancient civilization. Various clues have also been found about the religious beliefs of the Indus Valley civilization. Figurines and seals unearthed during archaeological excavations show that this civilization worshipped nature gods and goddesses. In particular, a tree goddess and a bull god figure are among the important symbols symbolizing the religious beliefs of this period. Moreover, various ritual buildings and large baths show that this civilization attached great importance to ritual bathing and purification ceremonies. However, the end of this great civilization remains a great mystery. The Indus Valley civilization suddenly disappeared around 1300 BC. Various theories have been put forward as to the causes of this sudden disappearance, including climatic changes, natural disasters, epidemics, and external attacks. However, the exact causes are still unknown, making the Indus Valley civilization one of the greatest mysteries of history. My dear friends, the Indus Valley civilization has left us a great legacy as one of the oldest and most advanced civilizations in human history. The advanced urban planning, advanced agriculture and trade systems, arts and craftsmanship of this civilization are admired even today. Ah, my dear friends, now I will take you back in time, to the blue waters of the Aegean Sea and the Minoan civilization that flourished around these waters. The Minoan culture flourished on the island of Crete between approximately 3000 BC and 1450 BC, and was one of the most advanced civilizations of its time. Let's take a look at the secrets of this fascinating civilization. The Minoan civilization takes its name from the mythological king Minos. According to legends, Minos was the powerful and wise king of Crete who controlled the Minotaur, a monster hiding in the depths of the labyrinth. However, beyond these legends, the Minoan civilization shone in the real world as an enormous cultural and commercial center. Thanks to its strategic location, the island of Crete was at the crossroads of trade routes. This allowed the Minoans to trade extensively with regions such as Egypt, Anatolia, Mesopotamia, and the Levant, resulting in great wealth and cultural diversity. This trade enabled the exchange not only of goods and services, but also of ideas and cultural influences. For this reason, Minoan culture was influenced by other great civilizations of the time and also influenced them. Knossos was the largest and most impressive settlement of the Minoan civilization. The Palace of Knossos is a building that symbolizes the power and splendor of this civilization. The palace resembled a labyrinth with its complex structure and large areas. There were large courtyards, temples, workshops, storerooms, and living quarters. The walls of the palace were decorated with colorful frescoes, revealing the daily life of the Minoan people, their religious rituals, and their devotion to nature. The Minoans were also very advanced in arts and crafts. Especially ceramic works and metalworking were among the most remarkable crafts of this period. Minoan pottery stood out with its elegant shapes and vibrant colors, while metalwork stood out with its fine details and high quality. The Minoans were also highly skilled in jewelry making. Made of gold, silver, and precious stones, this jewelry reflected the wealth and aesthetic sense of the Minoan society. Minoan religion is closely associated with nature and fertility. The Minoan people worshipped gods and goddesses who symbolized the forces of nature and fertility. In particular, the serpent goddesses and the bull cult were among the most important religious symbols of this period. The bull symbolized power and fertility, while the snake represented rebirth and immortality. These religious beliefs are frequently found in Minoan art and rituals. The Minoan civilization also made significant advances in writing. This writing system, known as Linear A, is still not fully deciphered. However, it is thought that this script was used for commercial and administrative records. The linear script is an important piece of evidence that reveals the complexity and sophistication of Minoan culture. Unfortunately, the end of this magnificent civilization came suddenly and dramatically. In approximately 1450 BC, a great catastrophe destroyed the Minoan civilization. It is thought to have been caused by a massive tsunami resulting from the eruption of the Thera volcano on the island of Santorini. This natural disaster devastated the Minoan cities and led to the collapse of the civilization. However, the impact of Minoan culture was felt throughout the Aegean and left a deep imprint on subsequent Greek civilizations. My dear friends, the Minoan civilization has gone down in history as one of the most advanced civilizations of its time, like a shining pearl in the blue waters of the Aegean. The advanced urbanism, arts and craftsmanship, religious beliefs and trade networks of this civilization have left us a great legacy. My dear friends, let's travel eastward together and step into the world of the Scythians, one of history's most mysterious and fascinating tribes living in the vast steppes of Central Asia. To get to know this ancient tribe, we will open the dusty pages of time and explore their lives, their culture and their impact on the stage of history. The vast steppes of Central Asia is a region where nomadic societies like the Scythians were born and raised, exploring the world on horseback and writing epics on the battlefield. The Scythians were a tribe that ruled in this geography from the 8th century BC onwards, were known for their warrior identity, and in time they opened the gates of Europe by moving westward. The Scythians were a people whose origins are unknown, but many historians believe that they were of Proto-Turkic or Iranian origin. They adopted a nomadic lifestyle, which shaped their survival strategies and cultural structure. Resistant to the harsh climate of the steppe, skillful on horseback and skilled in the arts of warfare, the Scythians were a tribe that struck fear into their enemies. One of the most remarkable features of the Scythians was their devotion to horse culture. Horses were an indispensable part of their daily lives. They were not only a means of transportation, but also their greatest source of power in war. Scythian horse troops were famous for their fast and effective attacks. They mastered the art of shooting arrows on horseback and took their enemies by surprise with sudden attacks. For this reason, Scythian warriors were among the most feared warriors of the ancient world. The social structure of the Scythians is also quite interesting. They were organized in tribes, and each tribe was ruled by a chief. These chieftains were chosen for their bravery in battle and leadership qualities. Although Scythian society had a male-dominated structure, women also played important roles. Scythian women acted together with men in war and daily life, and some women warriors were even known as Amazons and became the subject of epics with their courage. Scythians' religious beliefs also played an important role in their lives. They showed great respect to nature and their ancestors and offered various sacrifices to their gods. One of their most important gods was the sky god Papeos. The sun god and the god of war are also important figures of the Scythian pantheon. Their belief in these gods shaped their daily lives and rituals. The Scythian understanding of art is another important element reflecting their cultural richness. Scythian art is characterized by ornaments, jewelry, and war tools made of gold and other precious metals. These works of art reveal the Scythians' aesthetic taste and craftsmanship skills. In particular, the art style known as the animal style is one of the most distinctive artistic expressions of the Scythians. This style often includes stylized animal figures and reflects their deep connection with nature. The Scythians' role in history is also quite extensive. They are known for their resistance against the Persian Empire and their interaction with the Greeks. During the campaign of 513 BC, when King Darius of Persia marched against them with a large army, the Scythians intimidated the Persian army with guerrilla tactics and eventually forced them to retreat. This resistance once again demonstrated the military genius and courage of the Scythians. Their relations with the Greeks were mostly realized within the framework of trade and cultural interactions. Their trade with the Greek colonies on the Black Sea coast increased the wealth of the Scythians and encouraged cultural exchanges. These interactions left traces in the cultural and social structures of both Scythians and Greeks. My dear friends, the world of the Scythians is full of epic stories of the hardships of nomadic life and the battlefields. Their courage, art, and cultural richness have left unforgettable traces on the stage of history. In the next chapter, we will explore in more detail the reasons for the collapse of this impressive civilization and the legacy it left behind. Are you ready? Then, let's continue our journey through history. My dear friends, how would you like to unravel the dusty pages of history and step into the rich and fascinating world of the ancient Hittite Empire in the heart of Anatolia? Let's discover the mysterious and fascinating stories of the Hittites together. The Hittites established a powerful civilization in central Anatolia, in what is now Turkey, around 1600 BC. Although the origins of the Hittites are not known exactly, it is certain that they established a powerful kingdom from the moment they appeared on the stage of history and turned this kingdom into an empire. Their capital, Hattusis, was located near today's Boğazköy, and this city became one of the most important political and cultural centers of the period. The history of the Hittites is full of great conquests and diplomatic successes. Hattusili, known as the first Hittite king, organized various expeditions to expand his kingdom and annexed many cities and regions to Hittite territory during these expeditions. However, the ruler who showed the real power and might of the Hittites was the great king Shupalululiuma I. During his reign, the Hittite Empire extended as far as Syria and the Levant and reached a level that could compete with great states such as Egypt, Mitanni, and Assyria. The Hittites were notable not only for their military success, but also for their advanced legal system and advanced diplomatic relations. Hittite laws are quite advanced and detailed compared to other civilizations of the period. These laws aimed to protect all segments of society and played an important role in ensuring social justice. The Hittites also mastered the art of diplomacy. They established peaceful relations with other civilizations through written agreements and letters, and thus built a great empire. The Kadesh Treaty is an important document signed between the Hittites and Egypt and is considered to be the first known written peace treaty in history. The cultural structure of the Hittites is just as rich and diverse. The Hittites, who believed in a polytheistic religion, worshipped many gods and goddesses representing various elements of nature and the universe. Gods such as the storm god, the sun goddess Irina, and the war god Sharoma are important figures of the Hittite pantheon. The religious rituals and temples of the Hittites are an indication of their religious beliefs and their devotion to the gods. The Hittite achievements in art and architecture are also quite impressive. They built great temples, palaces, and castles. The Great King Palace in Hattusa and the open-air temple in Yezilikaya are among the most beautiful examples of Hittite architecture. The Hittites were also masters of stone masonry. The reliefs and sculptures they carved on stone reflect their artistic skills and aesthetic understanding. One of the most remarkable among these works is the King's Gate at Alakahoyuk. The lion figures on this gate reveal the elegance and elaboration of Hittite art. The Hittites also made skillful use of writing. They wrote many tablets and documents using cuneiform and their own hieroglyphic script. These written documents provide us with important information about the daily life, administrative system, laws, and religious beliefs of the Hittites. The tablets found in Boğazköy and known today as the Boğazköy archives are among the most important sources on Hittite history. One of the most important characteristics of the Hittites is their warrior identity. Their strong and disciplined army enabled the Hittites to establish superiority over their enemies. The Hittite army consisted of chariots and infantry units, and these units achieved great success on the battlefields. Hittite chariots provided a great advantage against their enemies with their speed and maneuverability. The Hittites were also advanced in ironworking, and this was another factor that gave them the upper hand in battles. My dear friends, the Hittites were a civilization that was born in the heart of Anatolia, grew and developed into a great empire. Their military achievements, diplomatic skills, advanced legal system, and rich culture made them one of the most important and impressive civilizations in history. The Hittites left unforgettable traces in the dusty pages of history and had a profound impact on the cultural heritage of Anatolia. My dear friends, I will now take you a little further down the magical paths of history, to the Levant and the Canaanite civilization. These lands have been home to many civilizations throughout history, creating a rich and complex mosaic of cultures. Let's take a journey together into the depths of this fascinating civilization. The Levant is a vast area on the eastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea, encompassing today's Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, Syria, and Jordan. Since ancient times, this region has been of great strategic importance as it lies at the crossroads of trade routes. It also offers a rich and diverse cultural and religious landscape. The Canaanite civilization developed in the heart of this region and is a mosaic of many different ethnic groups and cultures. The Canaanites lived in the Levant from 3000 BC onwards and built an advanced civilization over time. The Canaanites are known as a people who were engaged in trade and mastered seafaring. Thanks to maritime trade, they reached all over the Mediterranean and thus interacted with different cultures. The Phoenicians are one of the best known and most successful groups of Canaanites in maritime trade. The Phoenicians controlled the trade routes of the Mediterranean thanks to their mastery of shipbuilding and seafaring. The Canaanites believed in a polytheistic religion and worshipped many gods and goddesses. One of the most well-known gods is Baal, the god of storm and rain. Baal was also considered the god of fertility and agriculture, and was of great importance to the Canaanites. Astarte, the goddess of love and war, is also an important figure in the Canaanite pantheon. The Canaanites made offerings to their gods, built temples, and organized various religious rituals. These rituals were practiced with great seriousness by all segments of society. One of the most important cities of the Canaanite civilization was Byblos. Byblos is one of the oldest and most important port cities of Phoenicia. This city became an important center in the papyrus trade and therefore took its name from the word papyrus. Byblos also played a major role in the development of writing. The Phoenician alphabet formed the basis of the modern Latin alphabet and made a major contribution to the spread of writing. The cultural heritage of the Canaanites is not limited to trade and religious beliefs. They also made significant achievements in the fields of art, architecture, and science. The Canaanites mastered pottery and produced works of high artistic value. In the field of architecture, they built strong and magnificent cities. These cities were usually surrounded by walls and contained temples, palaces, and trade centers. The Canaanite civilization came under the sovereignty of great empires such as Egypt, Assyria, and the Hittites at different periods of history. This further increased the cultural diversity of the Canaanites and brought them into interaction with different cultures. The Canaanites remained under the influence of these great empires, but managed to preserve their own cultural identity. The strategic importance of the Levant caused this region to be the scene of constant wars and conflicts. The Canaanites managed to survive and thrive in this difficult geography. However, massive migrations and civil wars in the 1200s BC weakened the Canaanite civilization and eventually led to its collapse. However, the cultural heritage of the Canaanites continued to live on through the Phoenicians and other civilizations that came later. Dear friends, the story of the Levant and the Canaanite civilization is an example of how humanity has coexisted throughout history and how trade and cultural interaction have shaped societies. This region has been a meeting point for many different cultures throughout history, each leaving its own mark on the rich history of the Levant. My dear friends, now I will take you deep into the depths of our history, into the rich lands of Europe, where the stories of the Celts and the Iberian Peninsula await us. As a sage, I will tell you about these events that I have lived and witnessed, down to the last detail. If you are ready, let's begin. First, the Celts. A brave and warrior people living in the forests and rivers of Europe. The Celts were made up of tribes spread over a wide geography. The Celts lived mainly in Western Europe, in what is now Ireland, Britain, France, and Spain. They were known not only for their warrior characteristics, but also for their rich culture and mystical beliefs. The Celts were a deeply spiritual people who believed in the spirits of nature. Clerics called Druids led the religious rituals of this people, interpreting the mysteries of nature and the will of the gods. Druids were also considered the sages of society and were highly respected. These wise men explained the cycles of nature and the secrets of the universe, guiding the younger generations with stories and legends. The Celts' deep devotion to nature was a source of strength and inspiration. The Celts were masters of metalworking. They were famous for their weapons, armor, and ornaments made of bronze and iron. Spirals, knots, and intricate patterns, especially in their art, were symbols of Celtic culture. These patterns represented the cycle of life and the eternity of nature. The Celts reflected their warrior spirit in art and craft, creating works that were both beautiful and useful. Warriors were highly respected in Celtic society. They were known for their courage and fighting skills and played an important role in protecting society. Celtic warriors would enter the battlefield with wild war cries that struck fear into their enemies. These battle cries were a tactic used to frighten their enemies and increase their own courage. The Celtic warriors' courage and fighting skills made them among the most feared warriors of their time. When we come to the Iberian Peninsula, we find a different yet fascinating culture. The Iberian Peninsula, which covers today's Spain and Portugal, has been home to many civilizations throughout history. Shaped by the warm winds of the Mediterranean Sea, the Iberian Peninsula is a region with a rich and diverse cultural heritage. One of the most important peoples who lived in the Iberian Peninsula is the Iberians. The Iberians are considered among the first inhabitants of these lands and established a great civilization in the Bronze Age. They were an agricultural, animal husbandry, and trading people. The Iberians made great advances, especially in agriculture, and made the best use of fertile land. Olive and grape cultivation were among the cornerstones of the Iberian economy. Iberians were also a warrior people. They often clashed with other peoples around them and fought hard to defend their lands. Iberian warriors were known for their long spears and round shields. These warriors fought bravely against their enemies and did their best to defend their land. Iberian culture was also reflected in the arts. They were especially skillful in the art of ceramics. Iberian pottery was remarkable for its ornamentation and craftsmanship. These pots were produced in a wide range, from vessels used in daily life to special vessels used in religious ceremonies. These exquisite examples of Iberian art show their sense of aesthetics and the importance they attach to art. My dear friends, the stories of the Celts and Iberians reflect the rich history and cultural diversity of Europe. These peoples built great civilizations on their lands and achieved great mastery in arts, crafts, and warfare. Their stories speak to us from the depths of the past and allow us to travel through the magical world of history. My dear friends, now I will tell you about the trade routes and important trade centers of the Bronze Age. Let's walk together on the dusty roads of the past and discover the trade networks of that era. Remember, I am a sage and I will tell you about these events as if I lived them. The Bronze Age is a period in human history when trade gained great importance. In this age, trade routes established between different regions contributed greatly to the development and enrichment of societies. Trade enabled not only the exchange of goods, but also cultural and technological interaction. Let's take a closer look at the trade routes and important trade centers of this period. In the Bronze Age, trade routes stretched over land and sea. Road trade was especially concentrated between Mesopotamia, Anatolia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. These regions had become centers of trade thanks to their rich resources and production skills. The fertile soils of Mesopotamia and the advanced agricultural techniques of the Sumerians made this region prominent in trade. Products from here were transported to other regions via long caravan routes. Anatolia was at the heart of trade thanks to its geopolitical position. The Hittite Empire established here made great efforts to ensure the security of trade routes. The mountainous regions in eastern Anatolia were rich in mines from which precious metals were extracted. These metals, especially tin and copper, were used in bronze production. Tin and copper from Anatolia were transported to Mesopotamia and Egypt via trade routes. Sea trade was concentrated in the Mediterranean and the Aegean Sea. The Minoan civilization played an important role in maritime trade with the trade centers it established on the island of Crete. Thanks to their rich maritime knowledge and advanced shipping techniques, the Minoans had established a large trade network in the Aegean Sea. Products from Crete, especially olive oil and wine, were transported to other parts of the Mediterranean. Through trade, the Minoans shared not only goods, but also cultural values and technological knowledge. Egypt had become a center of trade thanks to the advantages provided by the Nile River. The Nile River had created a trade route extending from the north to the south of Egypt. This road facilitated the transportation of agricultural products and handmade goods. Egypt also played an important role in maritime trade with its ports on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean. Products from here, especially papyrus and grain, were exported to other regions. The Indus Valley civilization had established its trade networks both by land and sea. The Indus River was the main line of the trade routes of this region. Precious stones, ivory, and agricultural products from the Indus Valley were transported as far as Mesopotamia and the Persian Empire. These trade routes also enabled cultural interaction and the spread of knowledge and technology between different regions. Now let's look at the economic value of bronze and its exchange systems. Bronze was one of the most valuable metals of the Bronze Age. This alloy, formed by the combination of copper and tin, was used in many fields thanks to its hardness and durability. Bronze was especially important in the production of weapons and agricultural tools. Therefore, obtaining and processing bronze was of great economic value for societies. The copper and tin required for the production of bronze were sourced from different regions. Copper was usually found in abundance in Anatolia and Mesopotamia, while tin was a rarer metal and was brought from as far away as Afghanistan and Britain. Therefore, the trade in the metals required for bronze production led to the formation of international trade networks. The economic value of bronze also played an important role in the development of exchange systems. Bronze was also used as currency. With the spread of trade, a common unit of value was needed for the exchange of goods and services between societies. Bronze stood out as a metal that met this need. Small sculptures, jewelry, and ornaments made of bronze were used instead of money, facilitating trade. Dear friends, the development of trade in the Bronze Age and the economic value of bronze greatly influenced the relations between societies and their development. Trade routes enabled the spread not only of goods and services, but also of knowledge and culture. The value of bronze shaped the economic systems of societies and became one of the cornerstones of trade. This is the story of why trade and bronze were so important in the magical world of the Bronze Age. In the next chapter, I invite you to delve even deeper into these rich trade networks and the civilizations shaped by bronze. If you are ready, let's continue this magical journey of our history from where we left off. In the Bronze Age, many kingdoms and city-states were established around the world. Each developed its own culture and form of government, and laid the foundations of great civilizations. These kingdoms and city-states stood out with their administrative systems and social structures. In the fertile lands of Mesopotamia, great civilizations such as the Sumerians and the Akkadians were born. The Sumerians laid the foundations of an organized social structure by establishing the first city-states in history. City-states such as Uruk, Ur, and Lagash stood out as independent structures, each ruled by its own king. Each of these city-states was shaped around large temples called ziggurats. Ziggurats were used both as places where religious ceremonies were held and as administrative centers. In Egypt, a powerful kingdom had risen on the fertile lands of the Nile River. Egyptian pharaohs were considered god-kings and ruled with absolute power. During the Old Kingdom, the great pyramids built by the pharaohs were symbols of their power and wealth. Everything in Egypt was under the pharaohs' control: land, water resources, trade, and even people's lives. Under the pharaohs' rule, Egypt's economy and culture flourished. In Anatolia, the Hittites had established a powerful kingdom. The Hittite Empire controlled much of Anatolia and was ruled from their capital, Hattusa. The Hittites were a warrior society and were known for their military might. But they also made great contributions to the development of law and diplomatic relations. Hittite kings were known not only as warrior leaders, but also as just rulers. In the middle of the Aegean Sea, on the island of Crete, the Minoan civilization was established. The Minoans had become a great power in maritime trade. The palace of Knossos was the most important center of this civilization. The Minoan kings controlled the trade routes all over the island, and thus they had acquired great wealth. The Minoan civilization made great progress in the fields of art, architecture, and trade. In addition to these great kingdoms and city-states, social classes and hierarchy were also important in the Bronze Age. Societies often had a stratified structure, and this structure determined people's duties and status. In Sumerian society, kings and priests were at the top. Kings ruled city-states and were believed to communicate with the gods. Priests, on the other hand, led religious ceremonies and worked in ziggurats. The lower classes included merchants, artisans, and farmers. In the lowest class, there were slaves. Slaves were usually captured in wars and were forced to do hard labor. In Egypt, the pharaoh was the highest class. Just below the pharaoh were the viziers and high-ranking officials. These people carried out the orders of the pharaoh and managed the affairs of the state. Egyptian society consisted of various classes such as scribes, artists, craftsmen, and farmers. Scribes were engaged in writing and accounting and were highly respected. Farmers, on the other hand, worked in the fertile lands of the Nile River and produced agricultural products. In the lowest class, there were often forced laborers and slaves. The Hittites had a similar hierarchical structure. The king was in the top class and ruled with absolute power. In Hittite society, there were various classes such as nobles, warriors, artisans, and farmers. Nobles protected their wealth as large landowners. Warriors were known for their loyal service to the king. Artisans and farmers constituted the productive part of society. In the Minoan civilization, the king and the royal family were the highest class. Minoan kings controlled the trade routes all over the island. In this society where trade and seafaring gained importance, merchants were highly respected. Artisans, artists, and farmers also played an important role. Minoan society had made great progress in the fields of art and architecture, thus increasing their cultural wealth. Dear friends, in the Bronze Age, kingdoms and city-states formed a great civilization with their own administrative systems and social structures. These societies stood out with their hierarchical structures and social classes. While kings and priests constituted the highest class of society, merchants, artisans, and farmers represented the productive part of society. Slaves, on the other hand, were the lowest class of society and were often forced into hard labor. It has been my great pleasure to take you on a journey into the depths of history as we explore this magical period. Now, in the next chapter, I invite you to delve even deeper into these great civilizations and discover their secrets. If you are ready, let's continue this magical journey of our history. The Bronze Age was a time when civilizations made great advances not only in trade and culture, but also in war technology and military tactics. Wars were one of the most important events of this period and determined the fate of kingdoms. Warrior societies developed various weapons and tactics to gain the upper hand against their enemies. In the fertile lands of Mesopotamia, the Sumerians and Akkadians made significant advances in war technology. The Sumerians are credited with inventing the first wheeled chariots. These chariots were equipped with weapons made of bronze and provided a great advantage on the battlefield. Chariots were used to break enemy lines with their speed and maneuverability. These vehicles were usually led by two warriors, one driving the chariot while the other attacked enemies using arrows and spears. The Sumerians also developed weapons such as bronze swords, spears, and arrowheads. The strength and sharpness of bronze made these weapons very effective on the battlefield. Warriors were equipped with armor and helmets made of bronze, which gave them great protection against enemy attacks. Sumerian warfare tactics included strategies such as ambushing the enemy and attacking suddenly. These tactics were used to demoralize the enemy and gain the upper hand on the battlefield. In Egypt, the armies of the pharaohs were strong and disciplined. The Egyptians made effective use of chariots and bronze weapons. Pharaoh's armies were usually made up of infantry soldiers, archers, and chariots. Infantry soldiers were equipped with bronze spears and swords. Archers used bronze-tipped arrows to weaken enemy lines. Chariots were used to break through enemy defenses. Egyptian armies usually marched in an orderly fashion and tried to defeat their enemies with strategic attacks. Pharaohs, considered gods of war, would personally take part in battles, giving morale and courage to their soldiers. In Anatolia, the Hittites showed great mastery of war technology and tactics. Hittite armies were equipped with bronze weapons, and chariots were an important part of their military tactics. Hittite chariots were used by teams of three. One man drove the chariot, while the other two attacked enemies with arrows and spears. The Hittites advanced in an organized and disciplined manner on the battlefield, using tactics such as ambushes and sudden attacks to break enemy lines. The Hittites all adopted the strategy of using prisoners of war to strengthen their armies. In addition to warfare technologies and tactics, fortress and fortification systems were also of great importance in the Bronze Age. The kingdoms and city-states of this period built strong defensive structures to protect themselves against enemy attacks. Castles and fortifications were equipped with high and strong walls surrounding the cities. These defensive structures were designed to prevent enemies from easily entering the cities. In Mesopotamia, Sumerian city-states were often surrounded by high walls. These walls were made of adobe bricks and were very strong. The towers built on top of the walls were used for surveillance and defense against enemies. The Sumerians dug ditches around the walls, and these ditches made it difficult for enemies to approach the walls. The gates of the walls were closed with large wooden gates, and these gates were strongly protected against enemy attacks. In Egypt, the pharaohs built strong fortresses and fortifications. Egyptian fortresses were often built near rivers and other natural obstacles, making it difficult for enemies to reach the fortress. Castles were surrounded by high stone walls, which provided great protection against enemy arrows and attacks. Inside the fortresses, the Egyptians built structures such as temples, palaces, and military barracks. These structures were used both as defense and administrative centers. The Hittites, on the other hand, had built an enormous fortification system in their capital Hattusa. Hattusa was built on high hills, and they used this natural defense advantage to build their walls. The Hittite walls were made of large stone blocks and were very strong. There were many towers and observation points on the walls. By building ditches and dams around the walls, the Hittites prevented enemies from approaching the walls. There were also large courtyards and military training areas inside the walls. The Minoan civilization in the Aegean Sea also showed great mastery of defensive structures. The palace of Knossos on the island of Crete was surrounded by strong fortifications. The Minoan walls were made of stone and adobe bricks and were very strong. The towers built on the walls were used for surveillance and defense against enemies. Since the Minoans were a great power in maritime trade, they also protected their ports and trade centers with walls. In this way, they were able to protect their trade routes and riches against enemy attacks. My dear friends, in the Bronze Age, war technologies and tactics were one of the most important factors determining the fate of kingdoms and city-states. Chariots, bronze weapons, and strategic tactics were the foundation of the military achievements of this period. At the same time, castles and fortifications played a major role in protecting cities and kingdoms against enemy attacks. These defensive structures were equipped with high and strong walls, making it difficult for enemies to enter the cities. It has been a great pleasure to take you on this magical journey through our history and to introduce you to the warfare technologies and fortress systems of the Bronze Age. Now, in the next chapter, I invite you to delve even deeper into these great civilizations and discover their secrets. If you are ready, let's continue this magical journey through our history. My dear friends, it is time to step into the elegant and fascinating art world of the past. We will see how not only wars and trade, but also art and culture played an important role in the glorious history of the Bronze Age. This journey into the depths of history will give you a vivid sense of the art world beyond bronze and the evolution of writing systems. In the light of the Bronze Age, works of art were a delicacy that touched the depths of the human soul and formed the cultural heritage of civilizations. Artists of those times skillfully used sculpture, ceramics, and other art forms to reflect the aesthetic tastes and daily lives of their societies. Sculptures immortalized the splendor of gods and kings with elegant figures born from the perfect combination of stone and metal. The majestic sculptures of Mesopotamia, the colossal monuments of Egypt, and the elegant statuettes of the Aegean are living examples of how art has evolved over the centuries. Especially in Mesopotamia, the art of sculpture found its highest form in the depiction of royal and religious figures. During these periods, kings and queens were commemorated with statuettes honoring the gods. These statues, made of stunning stones and metals, are of great importance for our understanding of the beliefs and social structure of the time. Likewise, the immortal statues of Egypt depict the greatness of the pharaohs and the power of the gods, as well as the belief in their afterlife. Ceramics were an important part of daily life in the Bronze Age. In this period, ceramics were of great importance both functionally and aesthetically. Ceramics from Mesopotamia were often designed for everyday use, while the beautiful ceramics of the Aegean were decorated with elegant patterns and used for serving wine and food. Each piece of pottery reflects the social and economic structure of the period. In particular, the motifs and figures on the ceramics tell the beliefs, mythological stories, and daily lives of the people. Another important art form is the writing systems that emerged in the early Bronze Age. The development of writing is one of the most important turning points in human history. Writing facilitated the transfer of information and enabled the recording of history and culture. The cuneiform of Mesopotamia is one of the writing systems that took the first steps in the fascinating world of bronze. This writing system was engraved on stone tablets and kept records of administration, trade, and cultural events. It was during this period that writing was first used for official documents, temple records, and trade agreements, enabling the preservation of knowledge and cultural heritage. In Egypt, hieroglyphs formed the mystical and symbolic language of the ancient worlds. This complex writing system is found on temple walls, tombstones, and other sacred texts. The fine and detailed craftsmanship of hieroglyphs reflects the depths of Egyptian culture and the mystical world of the gods. The written documents of Egypt convey the details of both religious rituals and daily life. In the Aegean, especially in the Minoan civilization, early examples of writing had appeared. The Linear A and Linear B writing systems represent the written culture of this period. Linear B had a major influence on the later Greek alphabet and cultural heritage. These writing systems play an important role in our understanding of the economic and social structures of the Aegean civilizations. Art and writing systems show not only the aesthetic but also the intellectual and cultural development of the Bronze Age. Each sculpture, ceramic fragment, or written document reflects the beliefs, values, and social structure of the societies of that period. These art forms not only bear the traces of the past, but are also important stones that constitute the common cultural heritage of humanity. Dear friends, this part of our journey through history will take us into the deep mystical world of the Bronze Age, into the fascinating atmosphere of gods and mythology. Let us step into a past intertwined with the sacred lives of gods and goddesses, the splendor of temples, and the depths of religious rituals. During the Bronze Age, gods and goddesses always played an important role in the lives of societies. People were deeply devoted to these divine beings who regulated their lives, controlled the secrets of the universe, and shaped their destiny. Each god reflected the needs and fears of the society, and each of them shaped the lives of the people with their own characteristics and powers. In the fertile lands of Mesopotamia, we meet the sacred universe of the gods. Enki was the god of wisdom and water. His power as the creator of irrigation canals earned him great respect from the people. Enlil, god of weather and storms, controlled the sky and shaped the world. Each of the gods had an impact on different aspects of human life, and temples were built and rituals organized for each of them. These temples were considered the earthly homes of the gods and were ruled by a large number of priests. These large structures dedicated to the gods were also social and cultural centers, where ritual meals were served, prayers were offered in the presence of the gods, and people from all walks of life came together. In the fascinating world of Egypt, the number of gods and goddesses was almost endless. Ra, the sun god, made his way across the sky every day, while Osiris was the god of the afterlife and rebirth. Isis, the goddess of magic and healing, was one of the most revered figures of her people. Egypt's temples were centers not only of religion, but also of science and art. The hieroglyphs and majestic sculptures carved on the walls of the temples depicted the great power of the gods and their relationship with humanity. Religious rituals in Egypt were important to be reborn in the afterlife in the presence of the gods. These rituals included mummification, sacrifices in temples, and prayers on altars dedicated to the gods. The gods of the Aegean world and the Minoan civilization represented the power of the seas and nature. Poseidon, god of the seas and earthquakes, was one of the most powerful figures in Greek mythology. During this period, temples dedicated to the gods were often open-air temples, where altars and sacrifices dedicated to the god of the sea reflected the people's desire to gain the god's support for sea voyages and bountiful harvests. Aegean temples were meticulously constructed to reflect the religious beliefs of the communities and their devotion to the gods. In the Indus Valley, on the other hand, the mystery of the gods and rituals aroused widespread curiosity. Although we do not have complete information about the temples and rituals dedicated to the gods in this region, some figures and seals from excavations show that the gods were associated with the forces of nature. The religious life of the Indus Valley was often linked to water sources and natural elements, and the worship of water gods and natural forces was central to religious beliefs in this region. Central Asia and the Scythians, in addition to their nomadic lifestyle, had a belief system that emphasized the connection of gods with nature. The Scythian understanding of gods focused on the powerful and destructive aspects of nature. In this period, rituals performed in open spaces rather than temples and a lifestyle in harmony with nature were prominent. Scythians expressed their belief in gods and the forces of nature through shamans. The ability of shamans to communicate with nature and the gods was highly respected among the people. In the heart of Anatolia, the Hittites expressed their devotion to their gods through temples and rituals. The Hittites' religious beliefs, especially their belief that the gods controlled natural phenomena, played an important role in the daily life of society. Temples were used not only as places for religious activities, but also as centers for social and cultural events. Sacrifices to the gods and ritual meals were important events that brought the community together. In the Levant and Canaanite civilization, the influence of gods and mythological figures was directly linked to agricultural life and trade. Canaanite gods were regarded as divine beings who controlled natural phenomena and agricultural products. Temples and religious rituals were built to appease the anger of these gods and bring fertility. The ceremonies held in the temples were designed to make the gods feel their influence over the universe and to meet the spiritual needs of the community. In Europe, among the Celts and the Iberian Peninsula, the role of gods in mythology was particularly emphasized in relation to nature. The Celts showed great respect for the nature gods and tried to balance the forces of nature through various rituals. In the Iberian Peninsula, local deities reflected the different cultural influences and religious beliefs of the region. Temples and rituals were elaborately organized to gain the favor of these local deities and to ensure that society lived in harmony with nature. On this mystical journey, the rituals between gods and temples reflect the rich and multifaceted religious life of the Bronze Age. Each god, each temple, and each ritual reveals the beliefs, social structure, and cultural values of the period. This sacred past is the cornerstone of today's historical heritage. My dear friends, welcome back. I would like to take you on a journey back to the late Bronze Age, a period of great change that shook the world and determined the fate of civilizations. From the sea tribes and migratory movements to the end of the Bronze Age and the transition to the Iron Age, I will share with you this exciting story. It will be full of details, as if I had lived it myself. If you are ready, let's begin. At the end of the Bronze Age, the Mediterranean world was in turmoil. From the 13th century BC onwards, many great civilizations were subjected to sudden and devastating attacks. These attacks were carried out by mysterious and powerful groups known to history as the Sea Tribes. The Sea Tribes were seafaring and warlike societies whose identity and origins are still unknown. The attacks of the Sea Tribes particularly targeted the Egyptian, Hittite, and Mycenaean civilizations. These attacks led to the destruction of major cities and population displacement. Egyptian pharaoh Ramses I described the attacks of the Sea Tribes on Egypt in detail in inscriptions in the Temple of Karnak. The pharaoh was able to repel these dangerous enemies with a great sea and land war. However, even this victory could not prevent the weakening of Egypt. The Hittite Empire, on the other hand, had completely collapsed under the impact of the sea tribes and internal turmoil. Hattusa, the capital of this powerful empire, was destroyed by the attacks. The Hittites' trade routes and political power were greatly weakened, leading to a great power vacuum in Anatolia. The Mycenaean civilization suffered a similar fate. The great Greek cities were destroyed by attacks and civil unrest. The attacks of the sea tribes not only destroyed great cities, but also caused massive migratory movements. East and west of the Mediterranean, people began to migrate en masse in search of safe areas. These migratory movements gave rise to new settlements and cultural interactions. New peoples and cultures built their own cities and societies on the ruins of older civilizations. The migrations of this period were not limited to the attacks of the sea tribes. Nomadic communities from Central Asia spread to different parts of Europe and Asia and interacted with existing civilizations. These nomadic communities contributed to the spread of new cultural and technological innovations. These great waves of migration marked the end of the Bronze Age and changed the course of world history. The end of the Bronze Age was a period of great destruction and change for many civilizations. The great upheavals and crises of this period brought the Bronze Age to an end. However, this period of destruction also heralded a new era, the Iron Age. The transition to the Iron Age is one of the most important turning points in human history. The replacement of bronze by iron led to major social, economic, and military changes. Although the processing of iron was more difficult and laborious than bronze, the products obtained were much more durable and useful. Iron tools and weapons provided great advantages in agriculture and warfare. The Iron Age spread rapidly, especially in Anatolia, Mesopotamia, and the eastern Mediterranean. After the fall of the Hittites, new kingdoms emerged, such as the Phrygians and Urartians, who specialized in ironworking. These kingdoms developed ironworking techniques and began to trade with other civilizations in the region. In Mesopotamia, the Assyrians had built a great empire with iron weapons and chariots. Using iron technology, the Assyrians gained superiority over their enemies and conquered vast territories. With the beginning of the Iron Age, ancient trade routes and economic systems were reshaped. Iron became one of the most important materials of trade. Regions with iron deposits became centers of trade and great wealth accumulated in these regions. The Iron Age also saw the rise of city-states and kingdoms. These new states used iron technology to build powerful armies and defense systems. My dear friends, the attacks and migrations of the sea tribes were a period of great change that led to the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age. The devastation of this period also paved the way for the birth of new civilizations and technological innovations. Human history has always been characterized by change and transformation. These periods of great change have always presented us with new opportunities and challenges. My dear friends, I can see how fast the time has passed and how fascinating our journey into the depths of our history has been. Today we have embarked on an in-depth exploration of the glorious world of the Bronze Age, its mysterious civilizations, and a period of great change. As we experienced each episode, it was as if we had touched the pages of history and heard the echoes of ancient worlds. Now, as we conclude this historical journey, let us review what we have learned and felt. In the golden age of the Bronze Age, people elevated their civilization with the unique abilities of bronze and revolutionized many fields from agriculture to war technologies. Born from the combination of copper and tin, this precious metal revolutionized people's lives with new tools and weapons. The magnificent cities of Mesopotamia, the great pyramids of Egypt, the intricate city plans of the Indus Valley, and the brilliant cultures of the Aegean all testify to the diversity and richness of this period. However, history presents us not only with successes, but also with crises and changes. The devastating attacks of the sea tribes and the great migratory movements shook many great civilizations and changed the course of history. These events were powerful triggers for the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age. Iron replaced bronze, and humanity took advantage of the new metal to build civilizations, develop technology, and reshape social structures. History shows us great achievements as well as profound challenges and processes of transformation. The end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age were not only a period of technological change, but also of social and cultural transformation. This process led to the birth of new civilizations, the destruction of old civilizations, and the establishment of new world orders. Dear viewers, as we embarked on this in-depth exploration, we realized once again how rich and complex history is. Each era has its own story, each civilization its own place, and each change its own impact. History not only opens the doors to the past, but also offers us lessons for the present and the future. On this journey, I am delighted to offer you the opportunity to delve deeper into our history. I hope this exploration has inspired you to better understand its beauty and complexity. Now, in our next episode, I invite you to take another step into the magical world of other periods of history and civilizations. I hope to meet you again in our next videos, and thank you for accompanying me on this magical journey through history. Take care and keep getting lost in the depths of history. Goodbye.